Hi everyone, I'm Simon O'Connor here with my colleague Simeon Brown. Wanted to do a little bit of interview with Simeon actually around faith-based or church gatherings. Simeon's been doing a lot of work on this. So Simeon, there's some new news today.
That's right.
New news, never a great way to say it, but some new news today around regulations.
Well, that's right. So the government announced on Monday the new rules around level 2, and so sort of 2.2, and this is allowing faith-based gatherings to be increased to 100. Now, the issue that I raised under the first level 2 rules was that there was no definition of faith-based gatherings in it, which actually meant that the police interpreted them as saying actually you get gatherings of up to 100 people or groups of 10 as long as they were spaced out between other groups. So the government's now actually put a specific definition in there, excluded faith-based gatherings from the business definition, and they now come under gatherings, which can have a maximum of 100, as of 11:59 on Friday morning.
So do you think the original regulations was an oversight by the government?
Oh look, they said their intent was that faith-based gatherings should be limited to 10, but without defining or putting faith-based gatherings in there, it was open to do interpretation. So it was either an oversight or it was deliberate that they left it vague, but the reality is during level 2, faith-based gatherings have been able to operate with up to 100 people.
So some of us have been seeing this as a real issue of inconsistency rather than a pro or not pro churches. Is it a consistency issue in your mind?
Well, there is the inconsistency as well. I mean, the reality is you go to a strip club, a bar, a restaurant with 100 people, but you couldn't go to church or you couldn't go to your place of worship. And so the issue around inconsistency, I think, is what's driven this home for New Zealanders, is that actually we think people should be treated fairly, and that if there is going to be further restrictions on faith-based gatherings, there needs to be good evidence as to why. And there was no evidence to say that the risk of going to church was a greater risk of causing COVID-19 to spread than going to a bar.
Yeah, what I have to say as a quick comment, even though I'm meant to be questioning you, is you could go and play rugby for 2 and a bit hours with your mates.
Exactly.
And that was perfectly fine, but church services or attending mosque was not. In terms of what's happening on Friday, what's the rule change there?
So as of 11:59 Friday morning, religious gatherings will be able to increase to 100. Actually, all gatherings go up to a maximum of 100. I'm pleased that the government has seen that their rules were incorrectly written, so they've had to update them, and that now means that churches, places of worship, mosques can have that confidence to organise this weekend's religious services.
There are some suggesting, certainly to me, that still too much control. That the government's just letting these things out little bit by little bit. We graciously allow you to have 10, now 100. Are there any thoughts on that?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, they've taken away all our rights and freedoms. We accepted that in the fight against COVID-19, but now they're taking all the glory of giving them back. Well, the reality is we should have our freedoms unless there is good reason to take them away. And that's the presumption that should be worked upon, not the presumption that the government takes your freedoms unless they choose to give them back.
Well, a couple of last questions on that. Is it true that the government didn't actually reflect on religious freedom as part of the Bill of Rights?
No, there was no advice given around the requirement to consider freedom of religion, our freedom to worship, our freedom to gather to worship. None of that was considered when they passed these regulations on the law.
Well, that's quite what I'd suggest to you, and again, feel free to comment. But yeah, here was a deliberate decision by government to restrict those freedoms, yet it chose not to actually.
That's right, exactly. So this is a government which, I see a lot of commentary around, faith-based communities need to play their part. Well, yes, they have, and we should all be proud of what we've done. But the reality is we have freedoms which are in our Bill of Rights, and there's a requirement that they are considered, and they weren't.
And final question, you mentioned police. You were an MP who received some information that's actually opened a lot of this up. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so I received some information on some internal guidelines which showed the police interpretation was the same as how I interpreted the rules, and that's actually what's managed to get the government to move. So, in politics, you receive information, you use it, but you've got to prosecute it and make it happen. And so we've done that, and I'm really pleased to see the rules now reflect what should have been there all the way from the beginning of level 2.
And I right in thinking that the Prime Minister's interpretation was ultimately wrong, or at least different?
Well, completely incorrect. And the other thing is Grant Robertson saying, well, people should follow the intent of what we said we wanted, not the rules. Well, we live under the rule of law in New Zealand, not the rule of a press conference or a press release. That's how this government wants to run the show. They want to be able to project their view of the world by what they say. Well, actually, it's what the law says is what we live upon, and everyone is under the law.
And final thoughts, and probably as much turning to our listeners, you and I and a couple of others were behind a petition. We had tens of thousands engage. Any words for them?
Well, just thank you so much for signing the petition. I think it's just showing that democracy in action, your voice matters and your voice counts. So please continue to speak up for our rights and our freedoms, because we can fight COVID-19 and maintain our rights and freedoms as well at the same time.
I think that's a good place to end it. Simeon, thanks for your time today.
Thanks
everyone for joining us.
Cheers.